Welcome, friend. If you're here tonight, you might be carrying the weight of something you can't undo. A choice you made, words you said, a moment you can't take back. Your mind replays it over and over, editing, wishing, wondering how it could have been different. You're not alone. You can close your eyes now, if you haven't already. Let your body settle into wherever you are. Your bed, your chair, the floor. There's nothing you need to do here, nothing to accomplish, nothing to fix right now. For the next hour and a half, you have permission to simply be with what is, even if what is feels heavy. If you're carrying regret tonight, I see you. If you're lying here thinking, I should have known better, I should have done it differently, why didn't I see it coming? I see you. And I need you to know something. That weight you're carrying, it's not a sign that you're broken. It's not proof that you're a bad person. It's your heart's way of saying, I care about the impact I have. That's beautiful. But carrying it as endless punishment? That doesn't honor what happened. Tonight, we're going to explore something different. We'll explore an ancient teaching on forgiveness. Not the kind that excuses what happened. Not the kind that pretends it doesn't matter. The kind that frees you from carrying it forever. The Buddha taught about this 2,500 years ago, not as a religious rule, but as a practical truth about how the human heart heals. And modern neuroscience now confirms what he knew. You'll hear stories tonight, real people who carried regrets just like yours, who found a way through, not by erasing the past, but by changing their relationship with it. And you'll learn practices, simple, tangible tools you can use tonight and tomorrow. And every time that voice whispers, you can't undo what you did. By the end of our time together, you may find that the grip of I should have known better has loosened. Not because you've forgotten, but because you've remembered something else, that you're allowed to be human, that mistakes don't define you forever, that the past doesn't need your guilt, it needs your wisdom. Let's begin by understanding what you're feeling right now. Late at night, the house is quiet, everyone else is asleep. But you're lying here, awake, replaying it. That conversation, the one you can't stop thinking about. Maybe it happened 5 years ago, maybe 10, maybe just last week. But it's here with you now, isn't it? Vivid, like it happened this morning. The words you said that you can't take back, or the words you didn't say when you had the chance. You remember their face, the way they looked at you, the hurt in their eyes, or the anger, or the disappointment, and you've replayed it 1,000 times since, editing it in your mind. If I had just, why didn't I? How could I have been so? Your chest feels heavy, like there's a stone sitting right in the center of it, a stone that won't dissolve no matter how many times you apologize to the empty room. Your jaw is tight, your shoulders too. Your whole body is braced, like you're still in that moment, still defending yourself, still trying to explain. But there's no one here to explain to. Just you. and the memory, and the relentless voice that says, "You messed up. You really messed up." Maybe you've tried to make it right. Maybe you reached out and they didn't respond. Or they did respond, but it wasn't forgiveness. It was distance. Or maybe you never reached out at all. Because what would you even say? Because too much time has passed. Because you're afraid it would make things worse. So you carry it, alone, in the dark. You tell yourself, it's in the past. Let it go. Move on. But how? How do you let go of something that's already happened? Something you can't undo. Something that changed the course of a relationship, a job, a life. How do you forgive yourself when you can't go back and choose differently? The worst part? You know, logically, that staying awake torturing yourself doesn't change anything. You know that guilt doesn't undo the past. But your mind doesn't care about logic right now. It just keeps asking, what if? What if I had done it differently? What if I had been wiser, kinder, braver? And every what if feels like a knife. If this feels familiar, I need you to know something. This weight you're carrying, you're not the only one lying awake with it. Right now, at this very moment, millions of people are in beds just like yours, staring at ceilings, replaying their own versions of this. The email they sent in anger, the relationship they ended too harshly, the lie they told, the truth they hid, the apology they never gave, the boundary they didn't set, the moment they stayed silent when they should have spoken. Regret is one of the most universal human experiences. Not because we're bad people, not because we're uniquely broken, but because we're human, and humans make mistakes. We say things we don't mean. We act from pain. We miss opportunities. We hurt people we love. We make choices we wish we could undo. This is not a moral failing. This is being alive. But here's the problem. Here's where we get stuck. The problem isn't the mistake itself. The problem is what we do with it afterward. We replay it over and over, like a film on loop. We rehearse alternate endings that will never come. We torture ourselves with imaginary versions of how it could have gone. We think, if I just think about it enough, if I suffer enough, if I punish myself hard enough, maybe somehow I can change it. But suffering doesn't undo the past. It just keeps us trapped there, reliving a moment that's already gone, punishing a version of ourselves who no longer exists. Because here's the truth. The person who made that mistake, they were operating with different information, different awareness, different capacity. They were in pain you might not even remember now. They were scared. They were defending themselves. They were doing the best they could with what they knew. And you, right now, you're not that person anymore. You've learned. You've grown. You see things you didn't see then. But you're still punishing yourself as if you knew then what you know now. Here's what I know, and I know this because I've seen it. I've heard the stories. I've watched people find their way through. There is a way to carry regret differently. Not by erasing the past. That's not possible. Not by pretending it doesn't matter. That's not honest. But by changing your relationship with it. People have found peace, not by being forgiven by everyone they hurt. Some of them never got that forgiveness, but they found peace anyway. Not by undoing what was done, but by learning from it, by letting it make them wiser, by forgiving themselves, even when others couldn't. Let me share their stories, because in their journeys, you might recognize your own path forward. Violet is 41 now. She teaches English at a middle school in Portland. 8 years ago, she had a sister. They were close, grew up sharing a room, knew each other's secrets. But 8 years ago, during an argument, Violet said something cruel. She doesn't even remember what the fight was about, but she remembers exactly what she said. The words came out like weapons, designed to hurt, and they did. Her sister's face, the shock, the tears, the way she walked out and didn't come back. Violet tried to apologize, called, texted, showed up at her sister's apartment. But her sister had made a decision: no contact. The hurt was too deep. Years passed, birthdays, holidays, their mother's funeral, all of it separate. And Violet carried it every single day. I destroyed our relationship with one sentence. How do I live with that? She went to therapy. Her therapist said all the right things. You need to forgive yourself. You were in pain too. You can't control her response. But how? How do you forgive yourself when the person you hurt won't? She'd lie awake at night, writing apologies in her mind, rehearsing what she'd say if she ever got the chance, imagining her sister's face softening, imagining reconciliation. But that chance never came, and the guilt just grew heavier. Then, one night, Violet stumbled upon something. She was scrolling through articles, unable to sleep, and she found a story about Angulimala. Angulimala was a serial killer in the Buddha's time. He had killed nearly 1,000 people. But when he met the Buddha, something shifted, and he spent the rest of his life trying to atone. The Buddha didn't tell him, "Go back and undo what you did." The Buddha told him, "The person who did those things is not the person standing here now." Violet sat with that for a long time. If he could be forgiven, if he could find peace, maybe my mistake isn't unforgivable. She realized something. She'd been waiting for her sister's forgiveness to give herself permission to heal. But her sister might never forgive her, and that was her sister's right. But did that mean Violet had to torture herself forever? She started a new practice. Every night, she'd write a letter, not to her sister, to herself, to the version of herself at 33, the version who said those cruel words. "Dear Violet, at 33, I see you. I see how much pain you were in. I see that you didn't know how to handle it. You lashed out because you were hurt. That doesn't make it okay, but it makes it human. I forgive you. It felt strange at first, ridiculous even. She was writing to herself, but something started to shift. She began to see that 33-year-old Violet with compassion. That version of her had been struggling, depressed, scared. She'd acted from that place. Present-day Violet? She was different now. She'd learned. She'd grown. She understood pain differently. Violet still reaches out to her sister once a year. A simple message. I'm sorry. I love you. I hope you're well. Her sister doesn't respond. Maybe she never will. But Violet sleeps now. Not because she got the forgiveness she wanted, but because she stopped withholding it from herself. Violet's story teaches us this. You can't control whether others forgive you. That's their journey. But you can choose to stop punishing yourself forever. The question isn't, have I suffered enough to earn forgiveness? The question is, am I willing to treat myself with the same compassion I'd offer anyone else? Now, Violet's path was self-forgiveness when external forgiveness wasn't possible. But Nathan's story is different. Let me tell you about him. Nathan is 35. He's a paramedic in Chicago. Has been for 10 years. He loves his job, loves helping people, loves the adrenaline, the purpose. But 3 years ago, something happened. A call came in. Elderly man, heart attack. Nathan and his partner arrived fast. Nathan made a judgment call, a critical one. He chose one treatment protocol over another. In the moment, it made sense. It was by the book. But the patient didn't respond well. He survived, but with complications, long-term complications. Afterward, the senior paramedic reviewed the case. He said, "You followed protocol. You did what you were trained to do. Sometimes this just happens." But Nathan couldn't let it go. What if I had chosen differently? What if I had tried the other approach first? What if? What if? What if? He replayed that call thousands of times. Every detail, every decision, every second. He started doubting himself on every call, second-guessing, freezing. His partner noticed. "You're hesitating. That's dangerous," Nathan knew. But he couldn't stop. At night, he'd lie awake, seeing that man's face, imagining his family, imagining them blaming Nathan. "I should have known better. I'm supposed to be good at this. I failed." He thought about quitting, leaving medicine. How could he keep doing this if he couldn't trust his own judgment? Then his mentor, a veteran paramedic with 30 years of experience, sat him down. She said, "Nathan, do you know the difference between you and bad paramedics?" He shook his head. She said, "Bad paramedics don't care when things go wrong. They don't replay it. They don't learn. They just move on. You care so much it's eating you alive. That's not weakness. That's the thing that makes you good. But here's what you need to understand. You're going to make mistakes. We all do. The question is, will you let them destroy you, or will you let them teach you?" That conversation changed something. Nathan started researching. He found teachings on impermanence, on the Buddhist concept that the past is already gone, unchangeable. You can't go back and redo that call, but you can honor it by becoming wiser. Nathan created a ritual. At the start of every shift, he takes a moment. He thinks about that call, and he says quietly, "I made a mistake. I learned from it. I'm a better paramedic now because of it." He stopped trying to undo the past. He started honoring it by letting it make him wiser. Nathan is still a paramedic. He's one of the best in his unit now. He trains new paramedics, and the first thing he tells them, "You will make mistakes. Let me tell you about mine." He shares that story, not to punish himself, but to teach. And he saved lives because of what that mistake taught him. Nathan's story teaches us this. The past can't be changed, but it can be honored. Honored by letting it make you wiser. By letting your mistakes become your teachers, not your tormentors. Suffering over a mistake doesn't undo it. Learning from it does. Now, both Violet and Nathan found ways forward. But Helena's path reveals something else. Something about grief. Helena is 28. She works as a software engineer in Austin. She had a best friend. Let's call her Jamie. They'd been inseparable since they were 12, shared everything, grew up together. But when Helena was 25, going through the hardest year of her life, she wasn't there for Jamie when Jamie needed her. Jamie was going through a breakup, a hard one, and Helena was so consumed by her own struggles that she just wasn't present. Missed calls, short texts, cancelled plans. Jamie eventually stopped reaching out. By the time Helena came up for air, realized what had happened, Jamie had moved on. New friends, new life, a life that didn't include Helena. Helena tried to reconnect. "Hey, I'm so sorry. I was going through something. Can we talk?" Jamie responded, but it was distant, polite. "It's okay. I understand. But things are different now." And that was it. Helena couldn't accept it. She'd check Jamie's social media, see photos of Jamie with new friends, laughing, happy, living a life Helena wasn't part of anymore. And it hurt. It hurt so much. I was a terrible friend. I abandoned her when it mattered most. And now I've lost something I can never get back. Helena tried everything. Sent birthday messages, holiday cards, invitations to coffee. Jamie was always kind. But the door was closed. Helena started spiraling. "I don't deserve good friendships. I ruin everything. Everyone leaves eventually." At night, she'd imagine alternate timelines. What if I had shown up? What if I had been there? The guilt was overwhelming. But underneath it was something else. Grief. Helena started seeing a therapist who had studied Buddhism. The therapist said something that stopped her cold. "You're not just sorry. You're grieving. Grief and regret often travel together. You're mourning the friendship you had, the friend you weren't, the relationship that's gone. But you're trying to undo the past instead of letting yourself mourn it. That reframe changed everything. Helena realized she'd been trying to fix something that couldn't be fixed, trying to rewind time, trying to force a reconciliation that Jamie clearly didn't want. She wasn't honoring the grief, she was fighting it, so she stopped fighting. Helena created a ritual of letting go. She wrote a letter to Jamie, a long one. She poured everything into it: the apology, the regret, the love, the grief, and then she burned it. Not because Jamie didn't deserve an apology, but because Jamie had already received one, and she'd chosen to move forward differently. This letter was for Helena. She said out loud, "I grieve the friendship we had. I grieve the friend I wasn't when it mattered. And I release the fantasy of going back and fixing it." It hurt. It hurt so much. But it was a different kind of hurt. Clean, honest, not the endless torture of regret, but the finite pain of grief. Helena stopped checking Jamie's social media. She stopped sending messages that went unanswered. She started showing up for her current friendships, fully, present. And when someone needed her, she was there. Not because it erased the past, but because she'd learned from it. Helena still thinks about Jamie sometimes, still feels the loss, but she's made peace with it. She can't fix what happened, but she can be different now, and that's enough. Helena's story teaches us this. Sometimes letting go means grieving, not fixing. Some things can't be repaired. Some relationships are truly over. And the most compassionate thing you can do is mourn them honestly, then live differently going forward. 3 people, 3 regrets, 3 paths forward. Violet, who learned self-forgiveness when others couldn't forgive her. Nathan, who transformed his mistake into wisdom. Helena, who grieved what couldn't be fixed and chose to show up differently. Notice what they all discovered. They couldn't undo the past, not one of them. But they stopped trying. They stopped believing that their suffering could somehow rewrite history. And in that release, they found freedom. What made this possible for them? What allowed them to finally let go? This is where ancient wisdom meets the moment you're in right now. Let's explore what the Buddha understood about regret, forgiveness, and the irreversible nature of time. You've heard 3 stories now. Violet, who couldn't undo what she said to her sister. Nathan, who couldn't change the judgment call that altered a patient's life. Helena, who couldn't reclaim a friendship that had moved on without her. 3 different people, 3 different regrets. But notice what they all discovered. Their suffering didn't come from the mistake itself. It came from something else. It came from believing that somehow, through enough guilt, through enough replaying, through enough self-punishment, they could change what already happened. They were trying to undo the irreversible. Violet kept rehearsing what she'd say if she got another chance. Nathan kept replaying that call, editing his decisions in his mind. Helena kept reaching out, trying to rewind the friendship. They were all fighting against the unchangeable nature of time. This is what the Buddha called the suffering of attachment to what cannot be. Not attachment to people, not attachment to outcomes, attachment to a past that no longer exists, clinging to a version of events that can never be rewritten. The Buddha saw this pattern everywhere, in himself, in others, in the very structure of human suffering, and he taught something radical about it. Let me share a story the Buddha told, a story about a man who made the worst mistakes imaginable, and what the Buddha taught him about the past. This is the story of Angulimala. Angulimala was a serial killer. He had murdered nearly 1,000 people. He wore a garland made from the fingers of his victims. His name meant necklace of fingers. The entire region lived in terror of him. And one day, he saw the Buddha walking alone on a forest path. Angulimala decided the Buddha would be his next victim. He began following him, running after him, weapon drawn. But no matter how fast Angulimala ran, the Buddha always remained just ahead, walking calmly, not hurrying. Finally, Angulimala shouted, "Stop! Stop walking!" The Buddha turned and said something that changed everything. "I have stopped, Angulimala. I stopped long ago. The question is, will you?" Angulimala didn't understand. "What do you mean?" "I'm chasing you and you're walking. How have you stopped?" The Buddha said, "I have stopped harming living beings. I have stopped running from truth. I have stopped being at war with what is. You, Angulimala, are still running, still fighting, still trying to escape what you've done." Something in those words shattered Angulimala's defenses. He fell to his knees. All the horror of what he'd done came crashing down on him. He said, "How can I ever be forgiven? How can I undo what I've done? I've destroyed so many lives. There's no going back." The Buddha's answer is the teaching that changed Violet's life, Nathan's life, Helena's life, and maybe yours. The Buddha said, "You're right. You cannot undo the past. Every action you took, every life you took, those are unchangeable facts. But here's what you need to understand. The person who committed those acts is not the person standing here now. In the time it took you to chase me, you changed. Cells in your body died and were replaced. Thoughts arose and passed. The moment you committed those murders is gone. That version of you no longer exists. You are not a fixed, permanent self. You are a process, a river, not a stone. The question is not, can you erase what was? You cannot. The question is, who will you become now? This teaching is at the heart of Buddhist wisdom. The past is real. The pain is real. The consequences are real. But you are not frozen in that past moment. You are becoming new with every breath. Angulimala became a monk. He spent the rest of his life in service, practicing compassion, teaching others. Did that erase his past? No. Did people forgive him? Most didn't. Some threw stones at him when he walked through villages. Some spat at him. But he had stopped running from what he'd done. He honored his past by becoming someone different. Now you might be thinking, but I'm not a murderer. My mistakes are different, smaller. And you're right. But here's what's profound. You're doing exactly what Angulimala did before he met the Buddha. You're believing that your guilt can somehow undo what happened. You're believing that if you suffer enough, if you replay it enough, if you punish yourself enough, you can earn the right to be forgiven. You're running, just like he was. Running from the unchangeable fact that you made a mistake, that you hurt someone, that you can't go back, and the running is what's destroying you. The Buddha taught that there are two selves, not in a mystical sense, but in a practical, observable sense. There's the self that made the mistake. That version of you existed in a specific moment, with specific knowledge, specific capacity, specific pain. They did what they did from that place. And there's the self that's here now, the one who knows more, who sees more clearly, who has grown from the experience. These are not the same person. The you from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, last week, they had different awareness. They were operating from a different level of understanding. Your present self is not responsible for knowing what your past self didn't know. Your present self is responsible for learning from what your past self did. There's a difference. This doesn't mean your actions don't matter. They do. This doesn't mean there are no consequences. There are. This doesn't mean you shouldn't try to make amends when possible. You should. But it means you can stop torturing yourself for not having the wisdom then that you have now. Your past self made a choice with the awareness they had. Your present self has different awareness. The question is, will you punish your present self for what your past self didn't know? Or will you honor your past by choosing differently now? Now, you might wonder, is this just philosophy? Is this just a comforting story? Or is there something real here? Here's what's remarkable. Modern neuroscience is confirming exactly what the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago. Dr. Kristin Neff has spent decades researching self-compassion at the University of Texas. Her findings are striking. When you engage in harsh self-criticism, when you replay your mistakes with judgment and punishment, your brain activates the same threat response as if you're being attacked by a predator. Your amygdala fires. Cortisol floods your system. You go into fight or flight mode. And in that state, the learning centers of your brain shut down. You can't learn when you're in threat mode. You can't grow. You can't integrate wisdom. You just defend or collapse. So when you torture yourself about a past mistake, You're not becoming a better person. You're not preventing future mistakes. You're literally shutting down the parts of your brain that could help you grow from the experience. But when you practice self-compassion, something different happens. When you acknowledge the mistake without self-attack, when you say, "I made a mistake and I'm human," your prefrontal cortex activates. The learning centers light up. Your brain moves into a state where integration, growth, and wisdom are actually possible. Here's the paradox that Dr. Neff's research reveals. Being kind to yourself about your mistakes makes you less likely to repeat them, not more. Self-punishment keeps you stuck in shame. Self-compassion helps you learn and change. This isn't about letting yourself off the hook. It's about actually becoming the person who won't make that mistake again. The Buddha understood this without brain scans. He saw it through direct observation of the mind. Guilt doesn't transform. Wisdom does. Shame doesn't prevent future harm. Compassionate learning does. So what does this mean for you, lying here tonight, replaying what you can't undo? It means this. Your regret is not a moral failing. It's your heart's way of saying, "I care about the impact I have. I want to do better." That's beautiful. That's evidence of your humanity, your conscience, your capacity for growth. But carrying that regret as endless torture doesn't honor what happened. It doesn't help the person you hurt. It doesn't prevent future mistakes. It doesn't undo the past. What honors the past is letting it teach you, letting it show you who you want to be now, letting it make you wiser, kinder, more aware. The past doesn't need your guilt. It needs your wisdom. You cannot undo what you did. But you can stop being the person who did it, not by erasing the memory, but by becoming someone new, someone who learned, someone who grew, someone who chose differently because of what they now understand. This is the freedom the Buddha offered Angulimala. This is the freedom Violet found when she forgave herself. This is the freedom Nathan found when he let his mistake teach him. This is the freedom Helena found when she stopped trying to fix the unfixable and started showing up differently. And this is the freedom available to you, right now, in this moment. So let's practice it together. Let's explore what it actually looks like to honor your past by choosing wisdom over guilt. Before we dive into practices, let's be clear about something important. This isn't about forcing forgiveness. If you're not ready to forgive yourself, that's okay. You don't have to be ready. There's no timeline on this. This is about something different. This is about creating a different relationship with your past. One where you don't have to torture yourself endlessly in order to prove you care. One where you can acknowledge what happened, learn from it, and still treat yourself with basic human dignity. Progress, not perfection. That's the principle here. You're not trying to become someone who never made a mistake. That person doesn't exist. You're trying to become someone who can hold their mistakes with wisdom instead of shame. There's a difference. Shame says, I am bad. Wisdom says, I did something that caused harm, and I can learn from this. The practices I'm about to share with you, they're simple. Deceptively simple, actually. You might even think they're too simple to work. But simple doesn't mean easy, and simple doesn't mean ineffective. These practices have helped thousands of people. They've been tested by time, by science, by real human beings lying awake at night just like you. Start small. Be patient with yourself. Let's practice together, right now. I'll guide you through this. First, bring to mind the regret you're carrying. Not the full story, not every detail, just the feeling of it, the weight of it. Notice where you feel it in your body. Is it in your chest, your throat, your stomach, your shoulders? Just notice. You don't have to change it. Now, if you can, place a hand there, on your chest or wherever you feel it most. Your hand is warm. Let it rest there gently. Now I'm going to ask you to do something that might feel strange. Imagine this regret, this mistake, this guilt you're carrying. Imagine it's not yours. Imagine it belongs to someone you love deeply, your best friend, your child, someone you care about more than anything. They come to you and they say, I made this mistake. I hurt someone. I can't take it back. I don't know how to live with this. What would you say to them? Would you say, you're a terrible person. You should suffer forever. You don't deserve peace? No, you wouldn't say that. You'd probably say something like, you made a mistake. You were hurting. You didn't have the wisdom then that you have now. You're human. Humans make mistakes. You might say, I see how much this is hurting you. That shows you have a good heart, but you don't have to carry this as torture forever. Now, say that to yourself, out loud if you can, or silently if that feels safer. I made a mistake. I was hurting. I didn't know what I know now. I'm human. Notice what happens when you say those words. Maybe nothing. Maybe something shifts slightly. Maybe it feels ridiculous. Maybe it feels like relief. Whatever you feel, it's okay. This is the practice. It's that simple. Not erasing the past, not pretending it didn't happen, just speaking to yourself the way you'd speak to someone you love. With compassion, with understanding, with basic human kindness. You just practiced. That's it. You did it. Now, that was a practice you can do right now, in real time, when guilt arises. But there's another practice, one that goes deeper, one you can try tonight or tomorrow when you have a quiet moment. This practice is more involved. It takes about 15 minutes, but it's powerful. Here's what you do. Get a piece of paper or open a note on your phone. Whatever works for you. You're going to write a letter to your past self, the version of you who made that mistake. If the mistake happened 5 years ago, write to yourself at that age. If it happened last week, write to that version of you. Start with their name, dear, and then your name at that age. Dear Helena at 25, dear Nathan at 32, dear Violet at 33. Then write what you wish someone had said to you then, what you wish you could say to that version of yourself now. You might write, I see you. I see how much pain you were in. I see that you were doing the best you could with what you knew. You might write, what you did caused harm. I'm not saying it was okay, but I understand why it happened. You were scared. You were hurting. You were defending yourself the only way you knew how. You might write, you didn't have the awareness then that you have now. You didn't know what this choice would cost. If you had known, you would have chosen differently. I know that about you. You might write, I forgive you. Not because what happened was right, but because you've carried this long enough, because you've learned, because you're not that person anymore. Write whatever needs to be said. Be honest. Be kind. Be specific. This isn't a performance. This is between you and the version of you who needs to hear this. When you're done, here's what's important. You don't send this letter. There's no one to send it to. That version of you is gone. You can keep it. You can burn it. You can bury it. You can tear it up. The act of writing it is the medicine. Because when you write it, something happens. You stop seeing your past self as the enemy, as the person who ruined everything. You start seeing them as a human being who was struggling, who made a choice from a place of pain or fear or limited understanding. And that shift, that change in perspective, that's what allows healing to begin. This practice comes from a therapeutic technique called compassionate letter writing, but it has roots in Buddhist practices of self-forgiveness. The Buddha understood that we often need to speak to our past selves with the same compassion we'd offer others. Try it, tonight or tomorrow. Give yourself 15 minutes. Write the letter, then let it go, however you need to. Now, both of those practices are deeper work. They take time. They take intention. But what about tomorrow morning? What about the daily grind of waking up and facing the day? That's where the third practice comes in. This one takes 30 seconds. That's it. 30 seconds. Tomorrow morning, before you check your phone, before you start your to-do list, before the day grabs you, take 30 seconds. Sit on the edge of your bed, or stand in front of the mirror, or stay lying down. Place a hand on your heart. And say these words out loud or silently. Today, I choose wisdom over guilt. I can't undo the past, but I can show up differently now. That's enough. That's it. 3 sentences, 30 seconds. You're not making a grand promise. You're not committing to being perfect. You're just reminding yourself of what's true. The past is unchangeable. Your present is not. This practice is about anchoring, grounding yourself in what's real before the day sweeps you away. Because here's what happens to most people with regret. They wake up, and within minutes, the guilt is back. The replaying starts. The what-ifs begin. And the whole day unfolds from that place of shame. But if you take 30 seconds, just 30 seconds, to remind yourself that you're choosing differently now, something shifts. You start the day from a different place. Not from shame, from intention. Try it for 1 week. Just 1 week. 30 seconds every morning. Notice what changes. Not everything will transform overnight, but small shifts accumulate, and those small shifts become your new normal. So now you have 3 practices. The compassionate witness. 5 minutes when guilt arises. Speak to yourself as you'd speak to someone you love. The letter you don't send. 15 minutes when you're ready to go deeper. Write to your past self with compassion. The morning intention. 30 seconds every morning. Ground yourself in wisdom before the day begins. Which one calls to you? Maybe all 3 resonate. Maybe just one. Here's my guidance. If you're new to self-compassion, if this whole idea feels foreign or uncomfortable, start with the morning intention. 30 seconds. You can do 30 seconds. Do it for a week. See what happens. If you're in the middle of active regret right now, if guilt is visiting you often, try the compassionate witness. Every time the guilt arises, pause, hand on heart. Speak to yourself with kindness. It sounds simple. It is simple, but it's also powerful. If you're ready to do deeper work, if you've been carrying this for a long time and you're ready to shift your relationship with your past self, try the letter. Set aside 15 minutes. Write it. Let it out. Then release it however you need to. You don't have to do all 3. You don't have to do any of them perfectly. Pick one, just one. Do it for 5 days. See what shifts. That's enough. The Buddha didn't ask Angulimala to become perfect overnight. He just asked him to stop running, to stop fighting what was, to choose differently, one moment at a time. That's what these practices are about. Not grand transformation, just one moment, one choice, one breath at a time. You've been carrying this regret for so long. Maybe it's time to carry it differently, not as a weapon against yourself, but as a teacher, as proof that you care, as evidence of your growth. Let's bring everything together now. Let's integrate what you've learned tonight so your body can finally rest. Let's bring it all together now. Tonight, you've traveled through something important. You started by acknowledging the weight you're carrying, the regret, the what-ifs, the words you can't take back. You're not alone in this. You never were. You heard Violet's story, how she learned that she couldn't control whether her sister forgave her, but she could stop withholding forgiveness from herself. Self-forgiveness didn't require anyone else's permission. It was hers to give. You heard Nathan's story, how his worst mistake became his greatest teacher. Not because he erased what happened, but because he let it make him wiser. He honored the past by becoming better because of it. You heard Helena's story, how letting go sometimes means grieving, not fixing. How she stopped trying to rewind time and started showing up differently for the people in her life now. And you learned what the Buddha taught Angulimala, that the past is unchangeable, but you are not. That the person who made that mistake existed in a different moment, with different awareness. And the person lying here now, that's someone new, someone who learned, someone who grew. You practiced together. You placed a hand on your heart and spoke to yourself with compassion. You learned about writing a letter to your past self. You learned about the 30-second morning intention that can anchor your day. These aren't just ideas. These are tools, real practices that real people have used to find peace. Here's what I want you to remember most. 3 things. Just 3. First, you cannot undo the past, but you can stop being defined by it. Your mistake is part of your story, but it's not the whole story, and it's not the ending. Second, guilt doesn't honor what happened. Wisdom does. Torturing yourself doesn't help anyone. Not you, not the person you hurt. Learning, growing, choosing differently, that's what honors the past. Third, you're allowed to be human. You're allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed to let go. Not because what you did was okay, but because carrying it as endless punishment doesn't serve anyone. You've carried this long enough. Now, here's the most important part. You don't need to remember every word I've said tonight. You don't need to get any of this perfect. You don't need to force yourself to forgive if you're not ready. Your body already knows how to rest. Your heart already knows how to heal. All you've learned tonight, it's not new information. It's remembering what you've always known deep down, that you're human, that humans make mistakes, that mistakes don't define you forever. So let it all go now. The teachings, the stories, the practices, even these words. Just let it all go. Your body will remember what it needs. Your heart will hold what matters. Right now, you don't need to hold anything. Just rest. Feel your body now. Notice how heavy it's becoming. Your head sinking deeper into the pillow. Your shoulders releasing down. All that tension you've been carrying, softening. Your arms so heavy now, like they're made of something warm and weighted. your chest rising and falling. Each breath a little slower than the last. Each exhale a small letting go. Your legs heavy, sinking into the mattress, your whole body held by the surface beneath you. You don't have to hold yourself up anymore. You can let go. The regret you came here with, maybe it's still there. Maybe it's a little lighter. Maybe it's unchanged. Whatever it is, it's okay. You don't have to fix everything tonight. You don't have to forgive everything tonight. You don't have to let go of everything tonight. Tonight, you just have to rest. And rest is what's coming now. Deep rest. The kind that heals without trying. The kind that softens without force. Your breath so quiet now. Your body so still. Your mind beginning to drift. Let's rest together. May you rest deeply tonight. May you wake tomorrow with a softer heart. May you remember that the past is not a prison. It's a teacher, and you've learned enough. May you forgive yourself, not because what happened was okay, but because you are not your mistakes. You are the accumulation of every moment you've chosen differently, every breath you've taken since then, every lesson you've learned. May you be free from the story that you should have known better. May you be held by the truth that you did the best you could. May you sleep in the arms of compassion, not just compassion for others, but compassion for yourself, for the human being who made a choice from pain, for the human being who carries regret because they care. May you know deep in your bones that you're allowed to let go. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to be imperfect and still worthy of peace. May the weight you've been carrying become lighter with each breath. Not because you've forgotten, but because you've chosen to carry it differently. May you trust that growth is happening even when you can't see it. That healing doesn't require perfection. That wisdom is born from mistakes, not from avoiding them. May you rest now, deeply, fully, completely. There's nothing left to do now, no past to fix, no future to plan, no problem to solve. Just this breath, this moment, this soft, dark, safe space. You can let go now of the replaying, of the what-ifs, of the guilt. Let it all go. Everything. Everything. Your body knows what to do. It's already softening, already sinking, already releasing. You don't have to try. You don't have to force anything, just allow. Allow your breath to slow. Allow your mind to quiet. Allow your heart to rest. Sinking down deeper. So heavy now, so still. Your breath barely there, a whisper. Safe, held. The past fading, the future distant, just now. Nothing to hold, nothing to carry. Rest. Sleep. Let go. Rest well, friend.